Hi folks, just another quick update on this coronavirus situation. It really is being taken to the next level. The propaganda, they're pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. We even have a novel coronavirus outbreak real-time counter on YouTube. We can go and watch the live feed of how many people are being infected, how many people are severe, how many deaths there have been, all sorts of stuff. It's like a football game, folks. They've got everything in place for this. And we've got the World Health Organization has just joined with TikTok to fight misinformation and all sorts of stuff happening, folks. A lot of people took a little bit of an affront to what I said when I said I don't think that this is a real pandemic. I think that they've staged this. That's just what the evidence is suggesting to me, folks. I mean, I'm sure coronavirus is real, and I mean, there are forms of coronavirus. We know this. And yeah, there'll be a lot of people around the world that get coronavirus this year, as there is every year, people who get coronavirus. It's part of the common flu, or it is a type of the common flu. But what we're seeing around the world, people just dropping in the streets like this is not the stuff you see from pneumonia. It's not the sort of stuff you see from the common cold. It is the sort of stuff you would see if you excited the oxygen molecules and you directly targeted someone and you cause them to have respiratory failure, as we know is possible with 5G. But this whole thing is a globalist tool for control, folks. The governments always have a saying, never let a good opportunity go to waste. Never let a good crisis go to waste, sorry. And, you know, they always say there's opportunity in all crisis. And if you look at China, the word crisis and opportunity are actually interchangeable. That's interesting as well, isn't it? But it's going to be an economic thing, folks, and they're pushing that as well. See this here, like UK could face economic downgrade over coronavirus. Europe's car production is going to suffer because of coronavirus. Standard Chartered growth in Asia is gripped by coronavirus. It's all of this sort of stuff. And we've also got the coronavirus highlights the $35 billion vaccine market. And here are the key players. A lot of money to be made in vaccines for coronavirus, folks, so that's a big part of it as well. But what we're seeing here in Australia are things being taken to the next level as usual with our government. We've got this report which was in the news day before yesterday. Coronavirus pandemic plan, mass vaccination and stadium quarantine for Australia. Pandemic could last up to 10 months with 40% of the workforce sidelined by illness. You know, stands to, you've got to put it in perspective, folks. We haven't really had any coronavirus here. There's been like 8 people or something that say have had it, and you know, we've gotten on top of that and all sort of stuff. As 2020 begins, you know, I'll put the articles below, all of these articles, you can go and check it out for yourself. But they're saying that we're going to be facing a pretty tough time here in Australia, even though we're isolated and the government has taken so many steps to prevent it, and they're working on a vaccine for us, of course. How many people are going to want to take this vaccine? So the question is, what's going to bring coronavirus to Australia? Well, an interesting thing is that this has just happened. Telstra Perth networks has been switched on. 5G networks have just been switched on in Perth. So I just want to see if the first cases of coronavirus we see, if we do see anybody drop in the street or anything like that, the way they were in China, whether we may see this in Perth, whether they would suggest that it was perhaps someone who came in from Malaysia or Indonesia. There's a large Indonesian, Malaysian, Balinese population comes to and from Perth. It's a very popular tourist destination from Asia because it's very close to Asia. When you go over to Perth, you'll find there's a lot of Indonesian people that come and visit the place. There's a lot of Indonesian people around in Western Australia. It'll be interesting to see whether we see the main outbreak of coronavirus start in Western Australia. I'm just putting that out there just to see if that happens. Because that's what I think all this is about, folks. I think, you know, the coronavirus, this whole so-called global pandemic that's happening, this worldwide pandemic, this is a great excuse to usher in a new economy. It's a great excuse to say how much it affected trade, why they have to introduce a new system. You know, we've been expecting a financial crash to be coming for a long time. A lot of people have been looking at the financial markets, even with the $10,000 cash ban they've just brought in Australia, because they want to lock everybody into the banking system so we can have bail-ins into the banking system. They want to be able to steal everybody's money, folks. And they can only do this through a financial crash. But, you know, what can they do to bring about this financial crash? They want to have it because they want to be able to transfer wealth into the hands of the banking institutions. So this is a great cover for that. It's a great cover to round up dissidents. It's a great cover to bring about a financial crash. It's a great cover to introduce a cashless society. Get people scared of handling cash because it may contain the deadly coronavirus. All of the stuff that they're pushing, folks, it's a great excuse for all of this. And what I think we're going to see is, you know, travel restrictions and a move to a cashless society, far, far more control. And I think it's about economic control. I think we're going to see a revamping of the financial system. I think we're in for a very, very big year in response to this coronavirus. And again, folks, I have no fear of this coronavirus at all. The only thing that concerns me about it is the measures that will be taken by governments to protect us from coronavirus. And they're doing it everywhere, folks. They're locking down all sorts of places. They've locked down certain places in northern Italy as well. Certain towns have been locked down in fear of the coronavirus. It's also happening in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, in places like this. And there's also talks, there's reports that Chinese have been given mandatory vaccines. Now think about that, folks. If the Chinese were given mandatory vaccines, there's been reports such as this one, which have been circulating on Facebook. Vaccines were given containing replicated, digitized, controllable RNA activated by G. We don't know this. There's no way of confirming this sort of stuff, whether these vaccines contained this sort of stuff. You've really got to be careful with this type of information that's being spread, whether it's real or whether it's not, because we've got no way of vetting this. But what we can find out, what we can discover, is that there were certain vaccinations that were done in China. I'll just find this link for you, folks. I thought I had it open, but I haven't, so I'll do a bit of a search. But what we find is that there were vaccination trials that were happening last year in 2019. There were mandatory vaccination trials. China vaccine maker Jiangsheng plunges. That's not the report I wanted to show you. But there were major vaccine trials in China in 2019. Here's one here, how China is winning the war against measles. Every continent's been fighting the same war for decades against measles, blah, 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 blah. They've even promoted the concept that measles is a life-threatening disease, folks. Measles is a childhood disease that children should get because it supercharges their immune system. And by vaccinating children against measles, they've literally turned measles now into a lethal disease. There's people died of measles last year. This is unheard of, people dying of measles. But what they do when they vaccinate you for a certain strain of measles is they only vaccinate you for one strain. So therefore, when measles comes along, your body produces the wrong antibodies and suddenly measles becomes a life-threatening disease because your body is producing the wrong antibodies because of the vaccine they've given you. Through vaccines, what they are essentially doing is weaponizing common illnesses and turning them into something that is lethal. That's what the vaccine industry is doing. But there was a mandatory vaccination program that happened this is in December 2019. There were vaccinations for measles. And I think there was another vaccination that might have happened earlier in the year as well, which was a mandatory vaccination program that happened in measles. It happened in China, it happened in measles. In June, there was another vaccination program that happened in China. A lot of threat of diseases in China. That's the way they spread it. So there were 2 mandatory vaccination programs that happened in China last year, right before this outbreak happened, and that's an interesting thing. Another letter that I'd like to read you, just to show you how ridiculous this is being. There's a letter here that was sent to me by a school teacher who lives in Abu Dhabi. And he sent me this letter. He said, "Hi Max, I'm an elementary teacher in Abu Dhabi, and this was sent to us by the Ministry of Education. This is needless fear porn. This means my school will be cancelling our upcoming business fair, science fair, which students have put a real effort into and are really looking forward to. We just had an international day and it all went well. What's next? Cancelling recess as it requires students gathering together? Etihad flights have also been cancelled to Iran, most likely as part of the sanctions, and not this silly virus below is the message." And this was the message that was sent to his school by the faculty. Topic: circular on the suspension of all domestic and foreign school trips and events. As part of the precautionary and preventative measures taken to reduce the possibility of transmission of the COVID-19 virus infection, the Ministry of Education calls on all schools and educational institutions, including nurseries and kindergartens, to abide by the decision to stop the following works and activities starting today and until further notice. All internal and external trips, competitions, festivals and activities inside the school, especially those requiring student gathering, events and activities between schools or other parties. Accordingly, all pre-planned trips and approvals issued by the Ministry of Education are null and void, and we ask all educational institutions to adhere to the above in order to preserve a healthy educational environment. That's the message that was sent out to the school folks. All of the kids have had their activities cancelled in Abu Dhabi because of this so-called coronavirus outbreak in China. And I don't trust anything we're being told about this, folks. I think this is very much contrived. I think we're going to see more of it around the world as they run the 5G system out. And like I said, I'll be very interested to see whether the first real cases of severe coronavirus happen to just somehow coincidentally appear to be in Perth in Australia. We'll just see how that goes. But that's all I wanted to bring you today, folks. I just wanted to let you know what the situation is. I'm still wondering how it's going to be travelling overseas. I mean, I'm supposed to go travelling to England and Europe next month or the month after. I'm wondering how it's going to be. Like I said, I have no fear of the coronavirus, but I am concerned at the steps the governments may take to protect people from coronavirus, and whether I might end up in some 2-week quarantine somewhere simply because someone on the plane knew somebody who once went to China or something like that. I mean, you just don't know how far they're going to push this, folks. But I'd say the worst thing we could possibly do is to buy into the fear. There's also a movie that I recommend that you get hold of and look if you possibly can. It's a bit of a scary movie, but it's a movie called Inside the Moon. And it talks about a vaccine that was developed, and they tried it on pigs, and they found out that they could remotely trigger it by tapping on a computer. They could target that pig and they could cause brain dissolution, is what they called it in the movie. But they could literally target the pig and they could basically switch on a virus that they'd implanted into the pig through a vaccine. They could do it from a distance. They could do it any time in the future. It's an interesting film that they would put that out in 2019. It also said in the film the one thing that helps the virus spread and the one thing that helps you become susceptible to these things is fear. So it's a really good idea to put down the fear, folks. I have no fear of this so-called virus at all. Like I said, my only concern is for the government. I'd like to see the people wake up and call this for what it is. I really would. I'd like to see the people simply say, hey, listen, we've had enough. We can see through your plans. Hopefully they will. Hopefully the powers that believe they be won't get to take it to the level they want to take it to. But that's ultimately going to depend on us. But as I said, folks, I think it's important that people step back and look at this rationally. You know, in 6-7 months from now, you won't be hearing anything about this coronavirus. They would have brought in their new legislation. You won't even be hearing about it. It'll be like SARS, be like AIDS, be like Ebola, be like all of the other life-threatening diseases that they come out that tell us they're going to kill us within the next 3 or 4 months. It never happens, folks, and it's not going to happen with this either. And if you look at the figures and look at the stats, it's ridiculous. I mean, there's an image here that I'll show you that I'll put on the screen here. And you can just look at this. I mean, just go and research everything that you're seeing on this image here that I've got on the screen now. And go and check it out for yourself, folks. This pandemic is simply a manufactured crisis designed to bring about a globalist system that the globalists want to introduce, and it's the perfect tool to be able to do it. So that's about all I've got to say for today, folks. Thank you to all the people who send me so many kind emails. Thank you all to all the people who support me on Patreon. I couldn't do any of this if it wasn't for your support, so I cannot thank you enough for that. And I'll look forward to speaking to you again as soon as I'm able. In Lakesh.